My name is Rafael, you're watching Rock and Roll Garage, and today I'm going to show you 21 rock and roll albums that will celebrate their 50th anniversary in 2025. But first, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave your comment. Tell me which one is your favorite. Well, 1975, it was 50 years ago. Can you believe that? Time really flies, and many incredible albums were released that year. And today I'm going to show you 21 albums that are turning 50 in 2025. So let's start. The first one is probably, for many people, the best Queen album of all time, which is A Night at the Opera, released in 1975. Some of the most famous songs of that record are You're My Best Friend, Love of My Life, huge hit, and obviously one of Queen's signature songs, Bohemian Rhapsody, and maybe the best song of all time, the best song of their career, maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure, but certainly the top three, certainly on the top three. And obviously, as in every Queen album, at the time, the band was formed by Brian May, Freddie Mercury, Roger Taylor, and John Deacon. And at least during when Freddie was still alive, because after Freddie passed away, they still recorded a few songs as a trio. And we move to the second one, which is Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here. One of the greatest Pink Floyd albums from the 70s, for sure. It was the follow-up of Dark Side of the Moon. And some of the most famous songs from that record are Wish You Were Here, one of their signature songs for sure. Have a Cigar, which curiously none of them was the vocalist in that track. It was actually Roy Harper who was the lead vocalist on that track, a famous folk rock musician. They invited him. He was at the time around recording his stuff, and they invited him to sing. So if you don't know that, it's Roy Harper who did the vocals on Have a Cigar. And also Shine On Your Crazy Diamond. All the parts are on that record. Most of the record is Shine On Your Crazy Diamond, both tracks, and a masterpiece, a song about the original singer and vocalist Syd Barrett. And at the time, the band had their classic lineup: David Gilmour, Richard Wright, Nick Mason, and Roger Waters. And we move to the next one, which is Elton John, Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy, also released in 1975. Besides the title track, some of the most famous songs from that album are Someone Saved My Life Tonight, and my favorite one from that record, which is Philadelphia Freedom. And at the time, besides Elton John, besides Bernie Taupin, who wrote the lyrics, Elton's band had that classic and very, very underrated lineup. I think, when we think about Elton John, we remember what an incredible songwriter he is, his partnership with Bernie Taupin, but we forget the amazing band that he had, that classic lineup with Davy Johnstone on guitar, what an underrated guitar player, Dee Murray on bass, and Nigel Olsson on drums. Top players, fantastic players. I mean, they were also crucial for the amazing music that Elton did. We move to the next one, now a hard rock album, which is Toys in the Attic by Aerosmith, also released in 1975, an album that is turning 50. Can you believe that? Can you believe these songs are turning 50? Come on. Sweet Emotion, Walk This Way, and Toys in the Attic, for example. These songs are turning 50 this year. It's mind-blowing. And, when I hear, for example, Sweet Emotion, I think it's such a modern track. I mean, obviously, modern music, it's not like that, but I think, when you hear Sweet Emotion and you hear Walk This Way, if I didn't know they were released on Toys in the Attic, I would never say they are 50 years old. Fantastic songs. And at the time, obviously, the band had their classic lineup: Steven Tyler, the classic and original lineup, obviously. Steven Tyler, Joe Perry, Brad Whitford, Tom Hamilton, and Joey Kramer. And we move to the next one, Blood on the Tracks by Bob Dylan, a masterpiece by Bob. Incredible record. And three of the most famous songs from that record, and they're really great. If you don't know these three, please go and listen to it. Tangled Up in Blue, fantastic song, one of the greatest by Bob. Simple Twist of Fate, which is, an underrated track in my opinion. And Shelter from the Storm, what a fantastic song as well. If you haven't heard it, go check it out. And the only live album we selected on this list is Kiss Alive, the album that changed it all for Kiss. I mean, the band wrote great tracks on their first studio albums, but those albums were not able to capture the real power of Kiss, because the real power of Kiss was the live shows, at the time at least, because they were loud. The show was fantastic because it was not even only a music concert. There were fireworks, there were bombs, there were the makeup, all the theatrical side, Gene spitting blood, spitting fire, and the fireworks coming out from Ace Frehley's guitar and everything else that Kiss became famous for during the live shows. And Kiss Alive, although it was not really everything was live on that record, because they admitted later they recorded a few things, corrected a few things in the studio for those live performances, but we don't mind. We Kiss fans don't mind, because it's a perfect live album, but it's fantastic. I mean, if it wasn't for Kiss Alive, maybe the band wouldn't have been as successful as they were, because it was this album that made them big, and it was what really allowed them to become even bigger and to record the albums they made after on. And obviously they still had the original lineup with Paul Stanley, Ace Frehley, Gene Simmons, and Peter Criss. And some of the most famous tracks were Black Diamond, Deuce, and especially Rock and Roll All Night, because the Rock and Roll All Night studio version is not as strong as the live version from Kiss Alive. And this live version from the Kiss Alive album is the definitive version of Rock and Roll All Night, which is the second version of the song. And the album version doesn't have that incredible guitar solo by Ace Frehley, but the live one has. So it's the definitive one, is the incredible version, the version everybody knows. And let's move to the next one, which is Face the Music by Electric Light Orchestra, another very underrated band in my opinion. At the time they had the classic lineup with Jeff Lane, the band's leader, vocalist and guitarist. They had Bevan on drums, Richard Tenney on keyboards, and Kelly Grocott on bass as well. And some of the most famous songs of that album were Evil Woman, Strange Magic, What a Great Track, and Fire on High. And let's speed up because it's a long list. The next one is Physical Graffiti by Led Zeppelin, one of their greatest albums for sure. Obviously, they had the same lineup as always: Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, John Bonham, and John Paul Jones. And besides, let's start by the less famous songs of that album, which are quite famous as well: Houses of the Holy, Trampled Underfoot, and the masterpiece Kashmir. That amazing guitar riff and the amazing Robert Plant vocals. What a track, one of their greatest tracks for sure. Let's move on. Young Americans by Dave Bowie was also released in 1975, and it showed how Dave Bowie could change completely from one album to another. The sound, the lyrics, the look, everything, and he changed. And besides the title track, Young Americans, which is amazing, it also had Fame, a song that he had the help of John Lennon to write. Incredible song. And also Win, which is, I think it's a quite underrated David Bowie track. And we move on to Fleetwood Mac, the self-titled album, maybe which represented a little bit of a rebirth for the band as well, with the addition of Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks. And it has some of their most famous songs of all time: Rhiannon, Landslide, and Say You Love Me. What an incredible album. One of their best-selling albums of all time for sure as well. And we go to heavy metal. My favorite band is Black Sabbath, and this is one of my favorite Black Sabbath albums, although it's quite underrated in my opinion. Sabotage. And it was still the original lineup: Ozzy Osbourne, Geezer Butler, Bill Ward, and Tony Iommi. And these are some of the most famous songs of that album, and also some of my favorites. I mean, Hole in the Sky, fantastic song. Megalomania, what an incredible track in my opinion, quite underrated. But Symptom of the Universe, man, that guitar riff. And many people said that guitar riff from Symptom of the Universe was really important for the creation of thrash metal music afterwards, and it's quite heavy if you listen to it now. Just imagine that guitar riff in 1975. Iommi is a genius, the riff master, my favorite guitarist. What an incredible album. If you haven't heard, you should check it out. And if you know this song, don't forget to listen to the version that the Brazilian thrash metal band Sepultura did. What an amazing version. If you haven't heard, go check it out. Symptom of the Universe by Sepultura. Fantastic. And we move to the next one, which is Foghat, Fool for the City, their most famous album, which had their biggest hit, Slow Ride, but also had other great songs, which are Drive Me Home and Fool for the City, my second favorite Foghat song, because obviously we can't put Slow Ride on a second position. It's got to be up there. And at the time, the band had their classic lineup with Dave Pavrett, vocals and guitar, Rod Price on guitar, Tony Stevens on bass, and Roger Earl on drums, who is now the only original member of the band nowadays, because Foghat's still active, but Roger Earl is the only original member of the band these days. And we go to a Beatles member, Paul McCartney and the Wings, Venus and Mars. It was released in 1975, and he had a lot of great songs, which Paul McCartney still plays live, these days when he's playing live. Like, for example, Letting Go, he features that song on his set lists often. And other last famous tracks from his career, let's say, which are Listen to What the Man Said, Venus and Mars / Rock Show. And at the time, his band had a few incredible players: Danny Lane on guitar, Jimmy McCulloch on guitar, and Joe English on drums. And we move to the next one, which is Nazareth, Hair of the Dog, probably their most famous album of all time because of their career, because of the smash hits that album had, which are the title track, Hair of the Dog, incredible song, Miss Misery, but obviously the cover, probably the most famous version of this song, which is Love Hurts. It was recorded by, for example, Roy Orbison and many other players, but I mean, for me, Nazareth's version is the definitive one, is the greatest one, is the most powerful one. And I mean, Love Hurts, I mean, Dan McCafferty vocals are just incredible. What a very underrated band, which also had Pete Agnew on bass, Manny Charlton on guitar, and Daryl Sweet on drums. Let's go again to progressive rock music, and this is Crisis, What Crisis by Supertramp. It was released also in 1975. At the time, the band had their classic lineup with Roger Hodgson on vocals and keyboards and guitar, and also had Ricky Davis on vocals, keyboards, John Halliwell on saxophone, Dougie Thompson on bass, and Bobby Sigenberg on drums. Some of the most famous songs from this album are A Soapbox Opera, Sister Moonshine, and Lady. And I had the chance to hear those 3 songs live a few years ago when I had the chance to watch Roger Hodgson's solo show live. He's just fantastic. If you have the chance to see Roger live, go for it, because he's just amazing. And the next one is probably one of the most famous and successful Eagles albums, which is One of These Nights, released in 1975. At the time, the band had their first classic lineup with Glenn Frey, Don Henley, Bernie Leadon, and Randy Meisner. Some of the most famous songs from this album are One of These Nights, the title track, Lying Eyes, and Take It to the Limit. Fantastic songs. And Let's Beat Up, it's a long video. Straight Shooter by Bad Company, also released in 1975. Fantastic album. It had songs like Feel Like Making Love, Shooting Star, and Good Loving Gone Bad. 3 of the greatest songs by Bad Company, which was a band formed by the ex-Free members, Paul Rodgers, the vocalist, and Simon Kirke, the drummer. And they had also Mick Rolfs on guitar and Boz Burrell on bass for that album. And let's move on to another music genius, who was Jeff Beck. Blow by Blow, released in 1975, also an incredible album, which had songs like 'Cause We've Ended as Lovers, one of his most famous songs, Freeway Jam, and Scatterbrain. It was also released in 1975. We're almost there. Stick in the video, please. The next one is Ted Nugent. His self-titled album, released in 1975, which also had Derek St. Holmes on vocals and rhythm guitar. And it had songs like Stranglehold, fantastic Ted Nugent song, Hey Baby, and Motor City Madhouse. And we move to hard rock heavy metal as well. Rainbow, Richard Blackmore's Rainbow. Their Rainbow's debut album, the first Rainbow album. What a fantastic album, which had Catch the Rainbow, Temple of the King, and Man on the Silver Mountain. Fantastic album. The album that really showed Ronnie James Dio to the world. He was the vocalist. And that it also had Craig Gruber on bass, Garrett Driscoll on drums, Mickey Lee Soul on keyboards, and obviously Rich Blackmore on guitar. And the final album that we listed is Status Quo on the Level, which was also released in 1975, and is one of those quintessential Status Quo albums from their boogie rock phase. And I mean, the classic lineup: Francis Rossi on vocals and guitar, Rick Parfitt guitar, Alan Lancaster on bass, and John Coughlin on drums. I mean, tracks like Most of the Time, Bye Bye Johnny, and my favorite Status Quo song for sure, Down Down. I mean, the infectious groove of that song, the incredible rhythm, the incredible riff is just amazing. I mean, it's a song that blows your mind. Down Down. So this is a very, very incredible album that is turning 50 in 2025. And these are the 21 we selected. I hope you liked the video. Please leave your comment and tell me which one is your favorite, at least your top 5 of them. And if there are any other incredible albums turning 50 in 2025 that should have been included on this list, let me know, please. And if you want to read more, go to the description, visit the article we wrote about it. Don't forget to visit rockandrollgarage.com. Okay? Thank you for watching, and I see you later.